And today on the show, I'm delighted to be joined by Sergio Martin. Sergio is a procurement and supply chain advisor and former global head of procurement at Dyson. He's somebody that I've known for a long time. He's also a member of our judging panel for the ProcureTech 100 program. And our conversation today is really going to focus on how procurement can deliver best-in-class customer experiences. We're going to talk a little bit about who the customer is as well, part of that conversation. Sergio, first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here.
No, it's my pleasure as well. And I have to start with asking the question I always ask, which helps us go a little bit into your procurement background. And that's, did you find procurement or did procurement find you?
Procurement found me. I discovered procurement when I was at the beginning of my career, when I was at Decathlon. I was a stakeholder, so I supported parts of the annual RFP process. And I was always curious about how the end-to-end sourcing worked, but I never had the opportunity to go deeper. A few years passed by, and I continued my work managing logistic operations, and then Burberry gave me the opportunity to lead their procurement logistic function because they were looking for someone with experience on the ground and also with good commercial acumen. And to be honest, Phil, I haven't looked back since then. I'm very thankful to supply chain and in general and procurement in particular because it has allowed me to work with fantastic companies and meet amazing people. Many of those are close friends today.
Did you find that being on the other side of the table helped you build relationships with your stakeholders?
100%, because I was a stakeholder before.
Yeah.
I know their problems. I could put myself in their shoes. And then when I have a conversation with them, it was something like, yep, I have been there. I know how difficult that is. I know how problematic. So yeah, let me try to help you out to get out of the jam.
If you hadn't found yourself in procurement, what was the early career goal?
I was thinking to be a teacher, a geography teacher. Actually, I always had passion for teaching. My sister, my uncle, my cousins are teachers, and I guess I wanted to do the same. I really enjoy sharing what I know, mainly because I have a deep interest in continuous improvement and leaving things better than I found them. And for me, that has actually feel very important because when I planned my career, I wasn't really sure the field that I wanted to pick. I guess we all went through the same situation.
Yeah.
But I have one thing very clear. Anywhere I go, I wanted to have the opportunity to build something, lead, and teach.
Yeah.
And as I said, at school, I was really good in geography. But, teaching didn't have that build component that I was looking for. And I'm someone that like to get my hands really dirty and be challenged. And I decided to go into procurement because I have a trip when I was 18, and that trip changed absolutely my trajectory. I decided to move away from teaching and looking into international trade, and it has been one of the best decisions I ever made in my career because one thing led to another. I started at Decathlon, and the rest is history. Here today with you.
Well, I love the focus on geography. It's when I did my back in schooling, it's like business studies I could do, geography I could do. I wasn't very good at anything else. So, I knew that I would end up having a career that somehow encapsulated business or geography. And what I loved about procurement is I could combine them both and, work across cultures and have, as I've said on the podcast before, I have people pay me to go and travel to various different places. That was the big attraction for me, is being able to combine those two things.
Well, that's the one for me too, because in that trip, it was the first time that I was going. I'm originally from Spain, right? But now I live in the UK. So that was the first time that I was living in Spain. And because of that, because I met such a wonderful array of people, this is what basically gave me the thought, like, I really want to go to do this. I really want to meet people all over the world, meet different cultures, and see how we can work together. That's why.
Now you worked for a couple of leading brands in Burberry and in Dyson. I think both of those, as we kind of talked about off mic, presented some unique opportunities and experiences. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about those.
Yeah, for example, Burberry, from the procurement standpoint, it was a great challenge. I had the opportunity to work with the best supply chain professionals in that industry, such as Andrea Marco, and they always push me to make things better every single time.
Mhm.
Besides the standard work expected from a procurement professional at Burberry, I needed to think how those services will improve the overall customer experience, which at the end of the day, it will increase our revenue.
Yeah.
And that mindset at Burberry forever changed my approach to procurement. Now I see procurement and supply chain as a powerful force with two particular areas. One, the ability to manage costs efficiently, but
Mhm.
the other one as a revenue generator
Yeah.
due to supply innovation and the ability to find the right sources, the right services to supercharge the company competitive advantage and therefore the growth. At Burberry, cost savings were important. However, it was always about how we could deliver the best service to match the
Yeah.
quality of our product. And that service differentiation is what create our competitive advantage and what kept us ahead of the competition. Because personally, I feel that most of the time it's not what you do, but how you do it.
Hmm. I want to talk about the customer experience side of things in a moment, but could you talk a little bit about Dyson as well, and then we
Yeah,
can kind of build on those two things as we kind of dig into this topic deeper.
yeah, of course. Dyson is unique and a fantastic place. It's fast-paced, demanding, and very, very innovative. Phil Bickland gave me the challenge to build their entire procurement logistic organization from scratch. And as I said, I love a challenge. So
Yeah.
sign me up. At the beginning, it was difficult to change the mindset of the stakeholder base because they rarely engaged with procurement before.
Yeah.
And what they did, the experience wasn't great. So I didn't want to take a tactical or a strategic approach. I wanted to be, to a certain point, transformational
Hmm.
and support my stakeholders to take things to the next level. This is where I apply that mindset from Burberry in the interaction with the stakeholders. I was always looking to make that interaction as efficient as possible and maximize the value that they get from us. Everything was on the table for me, from simple RFP templates to
Yeah.
complex contract negotiation frameworks, data insights, market research, indices, and everything in between. Because after every interaction, I wanted to make sure that that value move forward our project and, of course, make the life easier for our
Hmm.
stakeholders, all with the objective to sourcing and contracting the right services to build a very strong supply chain foundation that allow the company to growth to achieve their growth plans. They were quite, how can I put it, aggressive.
Yeah.
So, but I can tell you during that time, the services that we implemented not only delivered the goods to the final consumers, but also create that amazing customer experience that grew dramatically the revenue for the 4.5 years that I was there, which prove how procurement and supply chain are revenue generators if they are well deployed.
When you talk about customer, how do you define customer? Sometimes we think about it as being relatively one dimensional in the person that we serve internally, but kind of is your perspective, there are many different customers kind of as part of how you interact with people.
Yeah, for me, a customer is someone that, for me personally, everyone is a customer.
Yeah.
Meaning, if it's an external customer, the one that it will get our products, or my stakeholders, or anyone that is dealing with me. So my approach is, whenever every interaction that I have with a person, I need to make sure that I deliver something special or value, because at the end of the day, that's how you move things forward. And one important point when you are dealing in organizations like this is to put yourself in the shoes of your stakeholders. There
Hmm.
is, if we need to get something out of this podcast, it will be please, every procurement professional do that, because when you put yourself in the shoes of your stakeholder, you understand their problems and everything they're going through, you're going to build very strong relationships.
So I want to take you back to when you were a stakeholder of procurement. What was your experience of the procurement experience, if you will, when you were on the, or how did it vary? Perhaps I'm sure you had, better experiences and not so good experiences, but how did you see it when you were on that other side of the table?
Yeah, the experience wasn't great. That's why, I changed my dynamic in that aspect. It was always about what procurement wanted to achieve, their policies, their processes, and everything, which sometimes it was clashing with the final outcome that we wanted to achieve. So that's why I didn't have the greatest experiences. That's why when I now in procurement, I want to make sure that I deliver something different.
Yeah.
And so I think procurement has a PR problem, and I really want to be part of that change, that new generation that changed how procurement interact with people and with suppliers, with customers, and everyone else.
Yeah, because I think of how I was brought up as a practitioner, and a lot of times it was, we saw the stakeholders as being our vehicle to hit our goals, not the other way around, that we existed to help them hit their goals. And that's a big mindset shift. I think that's, it's also cultural from an organizational perspective of who you work for, but that's definitely how I was brought up in the early years of, until I saw the error of my ways.
Yeah, exactly. It's also about the ownership of the relationship. Is the stakeholder should own the relationship, or procurement should own the relationship? Personally, I think nobody should own that relationship. It should be a way for both to collaborate, and both should be responsible of the performance of the supplier, which for me is different, because then everyone is joined together to deliver that benefit to the business.
How would you balance the goals of, because I see that it's a regular challenge for procurement is balancing the needs for, let's just say, cost savings with helping our business stakeholders achieve what they're going to do. How would you balance those needs where you're still putting the stakeholder first, as opposed to just looking at an opportunity as, well, this is an opportunity for me to save some money and help towards my targets?
I look at it as growth. And what I mean by that, sure, we need to achieve our cost savings targets, but I always say there is a limit on how much you can save, but there is no limit on how much you can make.
Yeah.
So the way that I frame it internally is, I will do my best to achieve the best possible savings without jeopardizing the service that will allow us to grow even further. So that's how I try to balance that. And when you put that idea on the table, normally, unless the business is in a really bad shape, everyone comes together and join, because everyone wants to make more money at the end of the day.
Yeah. No, and absolutely. Saying that there's an unlimited upside and there's only a limited amount of money you can continue to cut.
Exactly.
But while being open about, like, part of the reason that the organization invests in procurement is from a responsible cost management perspective. So you're going to help them do that, but it's not about coming and just finding ways to cut everything.
Yeah, because if you are not selling enough and you're not providing the right services to the final consumers, at the end of the day, the company will close, and that's not what we're here for. And procurement, yes, they're managing costs very efficiently, but they can only do as much if they're not really involved with the stakeholders and working together to do that.
And now, I hesitate when I ask this, because I'm going to preface it by the fact that tension is not necessarily a bad thing in a relationship between procurement and a stakeholder. As you're trying to get, we don't exist to just say yes to everything, but there are things that we can do to help our stakeholders, our internal customer stakeholders' lives a little bit easier. How would you think about, okay, I need to do what's right for the business, but I also need to help them?
I mean, it's a difficult challenge. Sometimes the stakeholder didn't involve you in time, and then you need to just do whatever you can to support them. But this is when I believe alignment and with the enterprise objectives and values remove that from the table. At least has been my personal experience. Everyone wants to do their best for their category or the business that they are running. But if there is not alignment on an enterprise level, then we're all fighting in a different ways without delivering what the company want us to deliver. So most of the time, how I not solve but manage this situation is by remember everyone that we're all working together to a common goal, and then normally the tensions tend to disappear a little bit. They're still there because everyone wants to do their own thing, but that's a healthy challenge.
Yeah. How did you approach getting credibility with a business? Because that's often a challenge for us, especially if we don't necessarily have subject domain expertise. Do you have to have that expertise, do you feel, to have credibility, or are there other ways to build it?
Yeah, personally, I believe you need to have a deep expertise. I would say 100%. And let me frame it really, really quickly. Let's say I'm sure you trust your GP or your family doctor, but I'm sure you don't want them to perform brain surgery on you. You want an expert in that field and make sure that they are doing that every single day. And of course, for procurement goes the same way. That's why I believe you really need to have a deep category expertise in order to have some credibility. Because with credibility and empathy comes trust. And I have seen many times and I'm pretty passionate about this topic in particular. So let me frame it really well. I have heard many times or even seen on LinkedIn the classic complaints. Procurement need a seat at the table, or stories about how stakeholders don't involve procurement on time. But I haven't seen a single post, or nobody has said to me yet, what they are doing to improve themselves on a daily basis. Where are they learning? Where are courses or classes they are taking? How they are putting themselves out of the comfort zone every single day, just to be better at what they do.
Yeah.
And of course, I feel you probably have heard many times as well, it's a lack of budget, lack of time, and so on. But for me personally, that's another excuse to avoid accountability, because if you want to do something, you will find a way. And talking about accountability, because I really believe that the way to build credibility is by accountability, by being an expert in your field. In this case, you're a procurement expert. However, you need to take things to the next level to be an expert in your category as well. And I know it's complicated. You need to be updated with the latest news. You need to deeply understand the services that you're buying, how those services are being delivered. You need to know as well as the stakeholders too. Understand how relationships work. That's super important. How to build them, how to maintain them, how to resolve conflict, understand the latest technologies, build commercial models, commercial law. I know it's a lot, but you build credibility by being an expert in your field. And when you are expert in your field, people gravitate towards you. It's just natural, because people want to be around people that are the best at what they do, especially when they have a problem.
Jump in. Does that expertise extend to specific category expertise, or is part of the procurement expertise knowing how to overcome that you may not have deep domain expertise like your stakeholder does, but there's still the things that you can bring to the table to help them?
For me, a procurement professional is to have both the procurement expertise and the category expertise. You can have, maybe you are a stakeholder, you have been a stakeholder before, but doesn't mean that you are able to do procurement. You need to have both, because some people are not good at conflict, or not good at building commercial models or anything like that. If you don't have that expertise in both sides, you cannot help them. I believe particularly that procurement is in this super nice intersection between commercial models, expertise, and able to deal with people. So it's that crossing or that intersection that's where the procurement people can deliver the best work that there is. And that's why I've been here for so long.
Well, the flip side of the internal stakeholder experience is the supplier experience, which is something that we probably don't put as much focus on as we should do. We not that we over focus on the stakeholder experience, but when we talk about experience, we're often immediately drawn to talk about our internal stakeholders and not our suppliers. But I know that one of your goals is always to position your company, whoever you're working for, as a customer of choice. Yeah. So kind of how do you think about like what that means in terms of your supplier relationship management?
Yeah, I'm someone, and the supplier that I work with know that very well. I'm someone that values long-term relationships. As anything in life, good things take time, and relationships are no different. True value comes when there is a solid foundation in that relationship, and both parties work together to achieve a common goal. Mm-hmm. Being a customer of choice, at least for me, is the same. People want to be around people with the same values and that can work together for long periods of time to achieve something great. My objective is that the supplier want to work with my company because we are the best at what we do. We are easy, that's very important, easy to do business with. And we have similar objectives. And if we don't have the same objective, at least we share the same values. Yeah. Being a customer of choice takes a lot of work, internal and external alignment. But I have seen how it delivers innovation, gives you access to exclusive services, and is the key for when there are supply disruptions. And we have seen that during COVID. A good relationship with your suppliers can keep you in a year with solid profits or a year deep in the red, especially with supply disruptions.
Does the ability to become a customer of choice, in your experience, is it down to an individual's relationship, or is it because of organizational culture that enables it? Or I guess what I'm trying to ask is, can you do it on your own as an individual and build a customer of choice relationship with one of your customers, or is it somewhat reliant around the way that your company itself operates?
My experience is that it's a team effort. Or a company effort, because if that individual leaves the company, then the relationship is gone. Normally, I have like 4 principles, and the first one is actually enterprise and values, and enterprise values and vision, which is you ask the question to the other party: are our values similar or complement each other? Are we aligned in how we want to deliver goods and services to our customers? And then, of course, you work on efficiencies, P&Ls, and continuous improvement as part of that journey. But an alignment at an enterprise level is absolutely critical to become a customer of choice, because the rest you can work out your way through it.
Yeah. What are some of the other principles then that you kind of have as you're trying to create that alignment with your suppliers?
So, for example, efficiencies, and this is where are we truly committed, both parties, to equally look for efficiencies in this business relationship? This one, because when you engage with a supplier, at least I have the experience that sometimes we push them too much and ask a lot from them, but there is no reciprocal. There is no reciprocity on that aspect. And I go back to the previous point. If you are easy to do business with, then people engage with you. Then P&L, no one is in business to make a loss. Then are we all aligned that we will try to deliver a healthy P&L for both parties, for the supplier to have a margin, but also for the customer to pay the best possible price for the best possible service? And the final one, I will say, continuous improvement. When we achieve the first 3, is there a commitment from both sides to keep finding ways to improve along the way, from, I don't know, in my area, transit time or risk mitigation, or new ways to do digital transformation, on so on. But if you ask me to pick one, I would probably pick efficiencies, simply because that normally sets a good foundation to have a good relationship, because you can be aligned on the values, but if you don't find good ways to work together, then things fall apart.
How transparent should we be with suppliers? Because inherently transparency is a key to strong relationships, but on the other hand, I understand there's still a reticence sometimes to share all the information with a supplier, because we've been taught that information is power, and so we tend to try and keep information to ourselves. How do you think about how much information is the right amount of information to share in transparency with suppliers when you're trying to build that type of relationship?
I mean, of course, anything that has to do with IP or anything like that, is off the table. But information that they require to deliver the best service, I don't think there's no reason to hide that, because at the end of the day, when you share information with them, you are helping them to help you to build that right service that it will deliver value for your company, but also for your final consumers. Because if they increase if they deliver a good service, that just will help you along the way. So transparency, to a certain extent, is key. But even more important than transparency, I will say, you even have to do the basics right with the suppliers, because at the end of the day, it's a relationship. Like, honor your commitments, hit your business deadlines, share valuable feedback, and
pay them on time. The most basic that we often fail on. Make it as easy as possible for them to get paid and pay them on time.
Yeah, exactly, because that removes friction from the relationship. Nobody wants to be in a position to ask for money because we have better things to do. So if you're able to automate that process, that will free up so much time to do something valuable. And my personal view is that if you have A players or top players doing admin, they will walk away from your business. And that's probably the worst thing that can happen to you. So from the procurement standpoint, if we can do something about it, sign me up, because I'm all about all efficiencies.
Well, how do you manage difficult conversations or difficult negotiations? When you've built that level of respect, you don't necessarily want to damage it. But again, like we said, tension is often healthy in a stakeholder and procurement relationship. It's healthy in a supplier and procurement relationship as well.
Yeah. When I have that relationship with a supplier, they know that I'm transparent, and I have set the expectations clear from the beginning. From my end, I will do my best to have the best possible relationship with your company, but at the same time, I want to make sure that you are transparent with us. They know that even if they have a contract in place, they need to go through that FP process every single time. They need to keep delivering on the SLAs and hitting their marks. Mm-hmm. So even if there is a strong relationship there's no getaway from them to not deliver that service. And that transparency and that honesty is what really build that solid foundation. And to this day, I haven't had any issues, simply because I framed the situation really well from the beginning, and I didn't undermine myself.
Right.
Which is really important.
As I think about the times that procurement is involved in a supplier relationship, like the life cycle of a supplier relationship, oftentimes we're involved, if we have category management within our remit, it's in developing upfront categories, long-term category strategies. It's definitely in the sourcing or renegotiation and the contracting process. But then when it comes to the contract is now signed, sometimes we'll throw that relationship over to the stakeholder and say, okay, there you go and manage that going forward, and let me know if there's a problem. How do you work to maintain a relationship once you're into business as usual and you've kind of gone through the procurement process, if you will, so that it doesn't feel as though it's just a linear, okay, we have a relationship here, it stops here, we hand it off to somewhere else, and I'll get back involved in 3 years?
Yeah, that's not my way of working. I'm a team player to a certain extent. And for example, to give you a tactical example, a contract was awarded. Fine, I will join the monthly business reviews and all these different kind of meetings. And from time to time, I will having a phone call with the supplier, just asking, "Hey, how are things are going? Are you finding any issues? Are you okay with the service? Is there anything I can do to help?" Just for them to have a side conversation aside of the day to day. And I normally do that every couple of months. Of course, I will have a category manager managing that particular service, but it's a good way to maintain that relationship. And I try to do it with the people that were involved in that RFP process or that contract negotiation to keep the relationship alive. Because it will come a time where we need to re-engage again. And I don't want to do all that heavy lifting. I want to, still maintain it. So that's the way I do it on the day-to-day with monthly business reviews and things like that. And then, of course, having calls from time to time. And I always say to the suppliers and everyone in business, I'm one call away. That's how far as I am. And my door is always is open because I truly believe relationships deliver value for the business.
Yeah. Now, I got one last question before we wrap up. Obviously, being heavily involved in developing these relationships and keeping connected with suppliers, throughout the entire life cycle, takes time. There's an investment of time and there's an opportunity cost with that. A lot of people listening will be thinking, I just don't have time to do all that. I wish I did have time to do all that. What's the ROI? What's the ROI that you've found on the benefits of doing what you do and approaching the customer experience on both the stakeholder and the supplier side in a way that you do that makes it worthwhile?
We go back to accountability. If you want to do something, you will find a way to do it. Of course, it takes time, but you need to be selective. If you have a tail of 7,000 suppliers, you're not going to do it with all of them. You focus on the core suppliers in your category or within your company. So what I have seen over the years by maintaining that relationship when things get tricky, again, COVID or any other disruption, is when that relationship pays off. And whilst you cannot measure it in numbers, when you see that a supplier will give you a solution when it's not giving it to anyone else, it's like, okay, this is working. And then you double down on it. But yes, I agree. It takes a lot of time and effort. But for me, it has paid off really well over the years, and I'm going to continue to do that.
Well, Sergio, I want to thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. For anybody who'd like to reach out and get in touch directly, we'll include a link to your LinkedIn profile on the show notes for today's episode. That's going to be artofprocurement.com/podcast. It's been a pleasure to speak. So thank you again.